as Sonia said, I'm Deirdre Egan. I am a registered nutritional therapist and mindset coach. I'm also a busy mom. Bit of chaos going on in my house today with 2 teenagers and 2 dogs. So I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old, and I understand all of the challenges that you are all facing. I know the summer holidays are particularly difficult with all of the juggling we have to do as mums, dads, parents, etc. So hopefully today I'm just going to move on to the next slide. So this is just, oh, hang on, it moved all the way across. So the table of contents, the agenda today, I'm going to talk about what hyperactivity is and the common characteristics, its kind of relation to food and the impact that food has on hyperactivity, and why the role of the kind of obvious culprits for affecting hyperactivity, such as food, additives, and a high sugar diet. And then most importantly, we're going to talk about the foods that support better behaviour in kids, etc. I'm going to leave you with some practical takeaways. A few tips on how, this was just a kind of a bonus slide I put in at the very last minute on encouraging kids to eat healthy foods, because it's all well and good me saying your children should be eating this and not eating this, but really you want to understand how to make those foods attractive. So look, I wish I had a magic wand that could make all of our kids eat only wonderful healthy things. I don't, but I do have a few, hopefully some practical and achievable tips. Okay, so common characteristics of hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is not just being energetic. So Sonia was talking about having 2-year-old grandchildren running around. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4, 5, whatever, are full of energy, full of life, full of fun. That, you know, when my young eldest was little, he was like a Duracell bunny from morning till night. That's not necessarily hyperactivity. It's not just being energetic. It is on the rise for various reasons, which that's a whole other webinar, but it can lead to challenges both at home and in the classroom. So characteristics of hyperactivity include restlessness, impulsivity, risk-taking, excessive talking and interrupting, and a lack of patience. I mean, you might be thinking that sounds like every child out there, but it's kind of to a different degree with hyperactivity. And, you know, there's no characteristics that are set in stone to diagnose hyperactivity. It's not something that you diagnose, but these are just the common characteristics. So I think it's also energetic kids are energetic kids, but when it starts causing issues at home and at school, it might be bordering on or kind of tipping into hyperactivity. So it's genetics play a big role, environment plays a big role, you know, what's going on in the kids' home, etc. But diet is increasingly recognized as a key contributor. And I think we've known for years that things like food, additives, and a very high sugar diet can cause hyperactivity in children. But in recent years, researchers have turned a sharper eye to the gut-brain connection. So looking at food sensitivities, nutrient deficiencies, and dietary patterns that could either support or sabotage a child's mental focus, energy regulation, etc. So let's have a look at the latest science on whether diet can help to support hyperactivity in children. So yeah, I've said genetics and environment play a role. Some children are simply wired differently, and their brains process the world in a way that can look louder, faster, and more impulsive. And there's, you know, these are fixed factors. There's not a lot, you know, I say there's not a lot we can do about genetics, but actually modulating diet and lifestyle, etc., can have a positive effect on the symptoms, even the ones caused by genetics and environment. But alongside these factors, the more modifiable factor is diet. So it's something that we can change and shape and improve over time. And it's not easy to make dietary changes. It's not easy for us as adults to make dietary changes. So what you don't want to do, and this is super important for us, for the kids, for anyone, is not to suddenly go from maybe, and I know kids with neurodivergence as well have their safe foods, and it's very difficult for them to make changes. So what we don't expect you to do with your kid, and it wouldn't be advisable, is to go from a kind of, you know, possibly a highly ultra-processed food diet to a super healthy diet. It's not sustainable or achievable to make all of those changes in one. So the good thing is that small, consistent changes and improvements can have an impact on how a child feels in their brain and in their body. So yeah, don't think everything at once, just think small, consistent changes, even when a week, when a month. It doesn't matter how slowly you move at your child's pace and listen to them. So just to be clear, we're not looking at a cure here. There's no cure for this. It's no food will fix a child. That's not the goal, but what we're looking at here is how we can use diet to help to regulate mood, energy, focus, behaviour, etc. So hopefully fewer meltdowns, better sleep, which is a really important piece of the jigsaw in child health, hyperactivity, etc. Steadier moods, and hopefully more moments of calm in your day, particularly as Sonia mentioned, coming into the long summer term. So today's is about support. It's not about perfection. It's about giving you some tools that you can try at home that will hopefully help to ease the pressure, help your child feel a bit more grounded, a bit more focused, and hopefully a bit more understood. I'm just going to switch back to Sonia. Before we move on, Sonia, any questions?
There are no questions so far.
Fine, I will carry on. So,
great.
Okay. Let me just move on to the next slide. Sorry, I'm presenting in Canva and I'm a bit of a novice at it. So the gut-brain connection, I don't know whether you will have heard of the vagus nerve. It's quite a, if you're anyway interested in nutrition and how the body works, you probably have heard of it. It's quite a big area really of research in nutritional science. So it's pretty well established that the brain and the gut are inextricably linked, and that is through the vagus nerve. So think of the vagus nerve as basically an information highway between the gut and the brain, and it's a symbiotic relationship. So your gut is talking to your brain, and your brain at the same time is sending signals downwards to your gut. Most of the traffic is coming from the brain to the gut. But so this relationship is known as the gut-brain axis. It can actually be particularly sensitive in kids. So for all of us, what we eat influences our gut microbiome or our gut bacteria, and that in turn affects brain function through the vagus nerve and through production of neurotransmitters or brain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin. Both of which, well, dopamine is the reward and motivation hormone, and serotonin is kind of your happiness hormone. They're both involved in attention and regulating mood. So what you eat has a big effect on these neurotransmitters. neurotransmitters or brain chemicals. So a 2022 review in a scientific publication called Nutrients found that there's not a huge amount of research on hyperactivity in children, so I'm extrapolating a little bit here, but it found that the microbiome of children with ADHD, and I know there's a big crossover, is often depleted compared to neurotypical children. So a child that is very prone to hyperactivity, it may be that their gut is quite depleted. You could think about adding in, I'm going to talk about some foods to add in, but it may be worth thinking about adding in a child-friendly probiotic as well. It's worth speaking to the either a nutritionist or a medical professional before you do anything like that. And if you are thinking about probiotics, please go low and slow. So don't give the full dose, particularly if it's a very sensitive child. Start off really low. So whether it's, a little gummy or something, it's half of that or a quarter of it, and you kind of build up to the full dose, because these things, particularly when the child is very sensitive, can be pretty powerful. So the role of food additives, I think this is probably the most widely known food that impacts behaviour and focus in kids. And I think as time goes on, a lot of food additives have been removed from foods. Unfortunately, due to Brexit, we don't subscribe to the same stricter laws, food laws, that the EU does. So we're not like America, where it's a bit of a Wild West in terms of the food industry, but we don't have to follow all of the EU laws now, where everything has to be really clearly labelled. So, do your research when you're buying kind of sweets, anything with like this lovely picture with these beautiful bright colours. So the Southampton study in 2007 demonstrated that artificial colourings such as sunset yellow, which is, I put the E numbers here because sometimes it just gives the E numbers, so E110, tartrazine E102, and sodium benzoate, which is a preservative, can increase hyperactivity in children. Further research published in a journal called the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, I've had to learn to say that a few times, bit of a mouthful, confirms that some children show heightened sensitivity to these additives. I think when you have a hyperactive child, I think parents are pretty aware of what additives their children are sensitive to and tend to take steps to avoid them. So you could probably, if you do have a hyperactive child that reacts to food additives, you can probably teach me a thing or two about this one. So scientists believe that a mix of the food additives, and there are other ones there, just the ones that these studies looked at. There's lots of enums, there's lots of food additives out there. So scientists believe that a mix of food additives and the preservative sodium benzoate could interfere with the production of these brain chemicals or neurotransmitters that I mentioned earlier. And just to remind you that they are, dopamine is our motivation and reward hormone, and serotonin regulates our mood. So, you can see then that impacting the production of these neurochemicals will affect children's behaviour and focus. More studies need to be done on this. But yeah, I think it's so well known, it's probably not a massive area of research at the moment. Okay, does sugar, does a high sugar diet increase hyperactivity in kids? Sugar by itself is not the cause of hyperactivity, but it is definitely a culprit. And we're not looking for perfection here, where no child can go to a birthday party and have, no sugar, no sweets, no cake. It's just a matter of really trying to get the rest of the diet as healthy as you possibly can, so they will be able to introduce a bit of sugar and not go off the rails. So it's not the cause, it is a culprit. Diets high in sugar and refined carbs. I always assume people know what I mean by refined carbs, but it's basically the white bread, white pasta, frozen chips, etc. So diets high in these foods can dysregulate blood glucose levels. If you're buying food, and again, I have frozen pizzas in my freezer. We are not looking for perfection here, but just be aware that even something like a frozen pizza can have spoons and spoons of sugar in. So the more you can cook from scratch, the better. But that is not to make you feel bad. If your kids had a white bread sandwich and ham for lunch today, absolutely fine. We're not looking for perfection. Any small changes you can make can have a big improvement on your child's health and behaviour. So a high carb diet can lead to sugar spikes. What goes up must come down, and then you have a crash. And that can result in irritability and a loss of concentration. So a further study in 2023, again, found that white bread, sugary drinks, processed snacks were associated with worsened attention, increased impulse and increased impulsivity in school-aged children. Again, I don't think that's going to come as a surprise to a parent with a hyperactive child. Just going to stop quickly and ask Sonia any questions. It's all fairly straightforward so far.
It is all straightforward so far. We were just musing in the chat, and I was wondering whether there's like a reference book or a place to go online for information about food additives, because it can be really hard to know which might be the worst ones. And also they've got lots of different names, haven't they? So
yes, there is a website. There's a few places as ever. Sonia, will you send me? I should have brought a pen and paper, but I didn't. Will you WhatsApp that to me? And I will send you over, and you can email.
Yes, yeah, we'll send everybody afterwards all of this sort of information, and the references to the papers that you found and things like that as well will be great. But lovely. That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of like what's the worst one, like anything with nutrition, as you know, it just depends on the person. So what can send me off the rails, you could be absolutely fine with, and something else might send you a bit doolally. So it's not necessarily, I mean, these are the ones that most of the research is based on, but it's very, because we're all biochemically different, it really is about which is the one that affects your child. But I will have a look and send you that.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else? That's it for questions.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Fine, let's move on to the next. Okay, so we've talked about the foods that can impact hyperactivity and just general poor behavior, I guess, in kids, which is food additives, preservatives, high sugar diet, and diets high in refined carbs. So let's now talk about what foods support better behavior in kids. So there's more research needed on this. With nutritional science, the companies, the supplement companies, etc., don't have the budgets that the big pharmas have. So there doesn't tend to be this huge body of research that there may be behind drugs, etc. But the studies that they have done in this support the hypothesis that omega-3 fatty acids may have a positive effect on children's brain function, mood, and behaviour. A study from King's College London found that giving children fish oil supplements improved attention and hyperactivity in children with ADHD. Another study found that supplementing with fish oil is useful for kids whose blood is low in omega-3s, and a 30-week-long study in 2020 by Cambridge University found that omega-3s may support reduction of symptoms of hyperactivity in children. So It's a bit tricky. I know my kids, aren't oily fish eaters. And this is where I'm very much food first. So if you can get your child to eat good sources of omega-3s, oily fish at least 3 times a week, great. If not, then this is where a supplement would come in. Again, speak to, if the child is on any medication, always check with a medical professional, because sometimes when we see people as nutritionists, we do what's called a drug nutrient interaction. So we will run a check to see if this supplement affects the medication or vice versa. So if the child's on medication, important that you consult their doctor. If not, omega-3s are fairly healthy. Make sure you go and choose a good brand. So Sonia's brands, Sonia has a lovely supplement for brain health, which I'm sure she will talk to you at the end. Unfortunately, that doesn't have a lot of research behind it, but the compounds in there do, and it's a lovely blend of compounds to help the brain, but omega-3 does have quite a bit of research behind it. So food sources containing good levels of omega-3, the biggest one is oily fish. So I've put the acronym SMASH in the slides. That is salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, tofu, and some eggs can be enriched with omega-3s. And as I said, some of these foods aren't necessarily the most child-friendly food. So, some kids love oily fish, in which case, great. And this is where, as I said, a supplement may come in. Okay.
Sorry, Deirdre, just before moving on, have you got any recommendations for a kid-friendly omega-3 supplement that tastes good? Because it can be really, really hard to find something that's acceptable. Yeah, I will send a link to it. Again, Sonia, pop that in a WhatsApp to me or an email. It's a Nutri-Advanced, bear with me, it's a little gummy. I'm just checking on my phone quickly. Well, we can include that in the resources that we share with everybody, but I will add it to the list to send you.
Yeah, excellent. I think it's Eskimo. It's Nutri-Advanced Eskimo something or other. But yeah, they're little kind of chewy gummies. Look, the best is the one that you take on the spoon. I don't know about you, but I remember as a kid having to stand there and swallow cod liver oil. But yeah, our kids aren't so compliant now. It is Eskimo. Thank you, Patricia. Yeah, so Nutri-Advanced do little kind of orange flavored gummies, and they're quite nice. Also, what's the other one that I like? Nordic Naturals. I like their fish oils as well. They do a flavored oil. I think it could be lemon. But yeah, it is difficult to get kids to take supplements. That's why if you can, give them the food. But yeah, they're just not particularly kid-friendly foods. But yeah, I will put the names of those over to Sonia and over to an email.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, no problem at all. Let's move on. So some more foods that are super important for kids' brains, for our brains, for all brains. Deficiencies in iron, zinc, and magnesium have been linked to hyperactivity and attention issues in children. So these minerals are essential for creating the brain chemicals or neurotransmitters that I mentioned earlier, and for maintaining balanced energy throughout the day. So again, not necessarily amazing in terms of being friendly for kids, but we'll go through them. And again, if you think your child is missing out on some nutrients, a little multivitamin can be good. Our soils are, although I am food first, our soil is pretty depleted these days compared to what it was. So I'm just turning on my charger. Yeah, our soils are depleted compared to what they were years ago. So we're not getting all of our nutrients from our food anymore because our soil is so depleted. But food sources of iron, red meat, dark green leafy vegetables, pumpkin seeds. And it's about, how do I get this, red meat is probably easy enough with homemade burgers, spag bowl, chili, etc. Dark green leafy vegetables can be trickier. Broccoli is one that a lot of children like for some reason because it's quite a strongly flavoured vegetable, but you could try that. Or you can actually make a smoothie and put some spinach, some frozen spinach or some fresh kale, etc. in the smoothie to disguise it. Pumpkin seeds, I make a homemade granola every week and put loads and loads of pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds, sunflower seeds in. You could do something like that. You could do, there's recipes for healthier flapjacks and cookies online. You could add some pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds in there as well. Zinc, beef, lamb, chicken thigh, dairy, pumpkin and sesame seeds. And magnesium. Magnesium is my favorite mineral, I think, and unfortunately we're all deficient in it, but it can help with sleep, with gut health, with stress management, etc. So you can find magnesium again in green leafy vegetables, not most children's favorite. Dark chocolate, also not most children's favorite because they tend to like the milk version. And pumpkin seeds. Some studies also found that vitamin D plays a role in regulating behaviours associated with hyperactivity. Lots of lovely vitamin D out there now. In the cooler months, you may want to supplement with vitamin D. The government recommends 400 IU. That to me is quite low. If you, and again, Sonia, I can give you a link to this. There's a home test that you can do for vitamin D where you literally prick your finger, pop it onto this piece of paper, send it off, and they send it back to you, or you can get your GP to check your vitamin D levels. But vitamin D is actually a hormone and very important for mood, behaviour, etc. Letting your kids outside for a few minutes without sun cream. I am not advocating not wearing sun cream, but just for maybe a few minutes every day so they can get some sunshine on their little bodies. That can really help with production of vitamin D. Okay. Protein. I think there's a lot of talk about protein everywhere at the moment, so I'm sure you're pretty familiar with it. So the brain is very active and it needs a steady supply of amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein to function effectively. Protein, again, helps to create these essential neurotransmitters and hormones responsible for brain health. And without sufficient protein, and a lot of kids can have very carb-heavy diets, so it can be tricky to get protein into them. So without sufficient protein, the brain may struggle to produce the necessary chemicals that are responsible for regulating behavior, concentration, mood, etc. Protein can be a tricky one for kids, but consuming adequate protein can help to balance blood glucose levels, and that's super important for Sonia will know, every nutritionist, we start off with looking at how do we balance your blood sugar level, and this can really support energy and mood. So it was actually Mr. Kellogg's that said breakfast is the most important meal of the day. He wasn't wrong in a way, because when children eat a balanced breakfast containing protein, they tend to perform better on tasks requiring problem-solving skills, concentration, and memory. So instead of like a sugary cereal, and I have got a little bonus document for you all at the end called 10 Clever Food Swaps. But instead of giving kids, these sugary cereals and a piece of toast with jam, they're going to get a big sugar rush. What goes up must come down. So by kind of 11 o'clock, their blood sugar has crashed, and then they're kind of picking at sugary snacks, and you get this throughout the day. So what you want, nobody has a straight blood sugar line, but you want this kind of curve like that. And how you get that balanced blood sugar is by consuming adequate protein, healthy fats and fiber as well. But think about almost, okay, what is the protein in this meal, and then build everything else around it. So when I'm talking about protein, meat, fish, eggs, tofu, nuts, seeds, lentil, beans, etc. Okay, any questions, Sonia?
No questions at the moment. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I'm like, where I start with most clients, whether they're big or little, is breakfast. Honestly, eggs is a great breakfast. I don't like eggs, so I tell my clients to eat eggs, but I don't like them. I am honest about that. So if, not everybody wants to eat eggs for breakfast. So you can have, how I start my day is some really good Greek yogurt. I don't go for the low fat version. I want the, excuse me, I'm just going to have a drink. I want the full fat version because actually we need that fat to make our hormones, for our brain cells, for our cells, for our skin, etc. So I'll have Greek yogurt, homemade granola, which contains maybe half oats, half nuts and seeds. So, I'm not getting that kind of big blood sugar spike from the oats, and I'm not demonizing oats. They're a good slow release carb, but adding in those nuts and seeds can increase the protein and some fiber. So if you can get your child to eat a breakfast more like that, or eggs, or now and again some good quality bacon or some chicken sausages, smoked salmon, etc., looking at protein and less. I've never given my kids cereal, so the first thing they do, even at 18 and 21, if we go to a hotel for breakfast, is they go straight for the cereals because that's a treat. Although not so much now. Now they really appreciate the breakfast that they've had all their lives. But when they were little, they thought they were deprived. Okay.
Golly, that's so funny.
I know.
And any of us that have been practitioners since our children are little have gone through that one. But I've always very much said to my clients about, focus on breakfast, because that sets you up, sets your metabolism for the day, gets you in a mode of eating regularly.
Correct.
And kind of think outside of the box, not just think about what a regular breakfast foods, so have leftovers.
Exactly.
I'm a massive fan of omelettes with all the leftovers thrown in.
Brilliant.
And having things ready to go in the fridge. So I would always have batch cooked sausages and hard-boiled eggs and cold chicken legs. And being a mother of a son, fill.
Gains.
Lots and lots of protein. And through university, he would have 5 eggs every morning for breakfast, scrambled up, eaten down. Start your day off. It's so important, I think, especially for boys.
100%. And chia puddings is a good one. Overnight oats with, again, nuts and seeds, Greek yogurt, a protein-based smoothie. There's lots of ways to get protein into your breakfast, but you can do your own little experiment. I do love a croissant now and again, and when I start my day like that, the day just goes awry. So it's, if you do go and have cereal and toast or croissant or whatever for breakfast, just keep a note on how you're eating throughout the rest of the day. And it's never great, is it? Because you're starting with this kind of blood sugar highs and lows instead of this nice steady blood sugar. So your son, 5 eggs and probably a piece of toast or 2, he's not going to need to eat again until lunchtime, or if he does
10:30 maybe.
Well, listen, I tell you, I came home. Yes, I came down this morning, and there was some dirty dish in the sink that was like dinner number 3 or something. So I feel your pain with boys, but I think we've both hammered that one home, Sonia. Start your day with a protein-based breakfast, and that goes for all of that goes for adults, that goes for all of us. And again, we're not looking for perfection here. We're not saying never go out and have a nice croissant and a cup of coffee, but just don't make it the norm. Okay, healthy gut. So we have established that the brain and the gut are in a symbiotic relationship called the gut-brain axis, and that our gut bacteria can influence our behaviour. So diets high in fibre, fermented foods and polyphenols can help to ensure a healthy gut and potentially improve behaviour. So just quickly on that one, you may have heard of 30 plant points. So the best tip to improve gut health is variety. And a plant point is not an apple or a pear. A plant point is a pink lady or a gala apple or a Williams pear or a conference pear. So if you love apples, go and buy 3 different kinds of apples. Same with pears. I only know 2 names of pears, but there's lots. So just go and buy, like, tomatoes, for example. You can buy the punnets of tomatoes that have 3 or 4 different types of tomatoes in. So, you know, immediately there, if you buy 3 lots of apples, 3 lots of pears, and a punnet of tomatoes, and say you buy red and white onions, that's 12 plan points. So it's very easy to get 30 plan points into your week. So focus on variety and focus on seasonal foods. That, I think, is my top tip for gut health. So look, fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, etc., not kid friendly. So the fermented foods that may be more palatable to kids include live yogurt, and you can mix in some fruit or make a little fruit compote with some add some herbs. Yes, Patricia, absolutely. Herbs, spices, all plan points. So fermented foods palatable to kids, live yogurt, kefir, sourdough bread, kombucha. So they may not be up for the kimchi sauerkraut. Maybe they will, in which case, great. If you are, you or your kids are starting to think about fermented vegetables, low and slow. Because if you go in with like a big couple of tablespoons, you might get really bloated. So start with a teaspoon and work your way up. So polyphenols are compounds that are naturally found in fruit and veg that help to protect our cells from damage. So again, all the fruit and veg, purple beetroot, green kiwi, red apple, yellow pepper, orange sweet potato, the more colours you can get in, the better for your gut health. And I do appreciate, as I said earlier, that getting kids to try or like new foods may not be easy. So I do have a few actionable tips in a minute. Okay, so when we think about supporting a child's behaviour and focus, we may overlook dehydration. Our brain is made up of about 75 to 80% water, so even mild dehydration can significantly affect cognitive performance. Dehydration can cause irritability and mood swings, so make sure your child always has a bottle of water to hand. Where possible, avoid fruit juices, fizzy drinks, etc., as they tend to be high in sugar or sweeteners. And I know some kids aren't great with water. You can get little apps to remind you to drink water. Maybe they might be that might motivate them, or there's you can get calibrated bottles. I know I saw lovely ones in Dunelm the other day. So you fill your 2 litres and they've got little kind of calibrations. That something like that might motivate them. Or and this is a bit pricey, but there's something called Air Up. It's a little I think you have to buy a special bottle, but it's a little capsule thing that fits on top of the bottle, and it basically tricks your brain into believing that, say, you might buy a strawberry flavored one, that your water tastes of strawberry, but it doesn't. It's just actually the smell. So yeah, hopefully you can get your and look, if they just will not drink water, it's more important that they're hydrated. So some kind of healthy natural squash, quite diluted, is better than them being dehydrated. Again, we're not about perfection here. Okay, so some practical takeaways for parents. So reducing and removing foods as much as possible containing artificial additives and preservatives, the more ultra processed. And when I talk about ultra processed foods as opposed to processed foods, the easiest definition I can think of to remember what an ultra processed food is one that you can't recreate in your own kitchen. So they're the ones you're trying to avoid. So you're avoiding those ultra processed foods and these kind of really bright, these blue drinks and bright purple drinks and all of these. They're just, full of additives. Limit sugar and refined carbohydrates in favor of some whole grains and some home cooked balanced meals. And again, this is where possible. We're not looking for perfection, and summer can be really difficult to to cook from scratch every time. But as Sonia was saying, leftovers is a great idea. So if I cook a spaghetti bolognese or a chili, something like that, I'll cook double because it's no more difficult, and then just kind of freeze it in portions. More omega-3s, preferably through foods. If not, do consider a supplement. Eating a good source of protein with every meal and snack. So if you try to remember, always pair your carb with a protein. It's essential for balanced blood sugar and sustained energy. Focusing on micronutrient-rich foods, eggs, leafy greens, nuts, seeds, meat, all of the ones I mentioned on the previous slide, and really making sure that your child does not get dehydrated even mildly, as it can impact cognitive function. Okay, so before I just talk about how to encourage kids to try some new foods and hopefully like them, any questions?
No, there's no new questions, but I can't wait to hear about how to encourage kids to try new things.
This is not a magic. There's no magic in this, Sonia. I'm sorry. I wish there was a magic wand I could wave.
No, but it's collective wisdom. All of
collective
the things
wisdom.
that we know
I like that
helped for people.
Absolutely. And speaking of collective wisdom, please pop your own tips into let the kids add raspberries and strawberry fruits in the water. Absolutely, Patricia. And you've just, spoiler alert, that is in one of my 10 clever food swaps. So yes, thank you for that. Okay, so let's move on to these tips. So repeated exposure. Offer small amounts and be really chilled about it, no pressure. They say that sometimes a child has to try something 10 to 15 times for them to actually like it or even want to try it. And that's really frustrating if you're putting a piece of broccoli or a piece of meat or whatever it is on a child's plate 10 times, but just keep trying with little bits. And, you know, one day they might surprise you. And one bite is enough to start. You know, don't put a whole, if they don't like steak, for example, don't put a whole steak on their plate and expect them to eat it. Maybe just get them to try a little tiny bit of yours. Make it fun. I guess that's more for the little ones, playful names. You know, we used to call broccoli trees when they were little silly things, colours, shapes, etc. You see on Instagram, I'm sure you can Google it, some incredibly creative mums and dads out there making fabulous kind of shapes out of vegetables and all of that. Let them build their own plate. So something like you could do like a little pizza. So say you have a wholemeal pita bread, you've made a tomato sauce and just put some, you know, some ham, some whatever they might like, some different types of cheese, some vegetables, some peppers, some mushrooms, and get them to make their own food. So getting them involved is a really good thing. Sometimes when my clients and myself have lost mojo in the kitchen, which can happen quite a lot, I recommend recipe boxes. My favorite is Mindful Chef because I have 2 celiacs and their recipe boxes are gluten-free. They're also dairy-free. But you can, you know, there's Gusto, Green Chef, HelloFresh, there's lots of different types of recipe boxes. But when my clients have kids who are on the fussy side, I'll say to them, get them involved in choosing a recipe box. You know, sit down when you're choosing your recipe boxes and get them to choose one and get them to kind of help cooking in it. So getting them involved. And I know it can be a major pain and a complete mess, but we've got to suck that up sometimes. Okay. So be a role model. There's no point in me telling my kids you need to eat 5 different vegetables a day, etc., etc., and I'm sat there eating ultra-processed foods all the time. So you need to emulate, really important, what you expect or what you want from your kid. Yeah. So eat the same foods and show you enjoy them, and keep meal times relaxed and positive. Don't get stressed. Don't start getting annoyed with them if, you know, it doesn't go to plan, because then it will become a really big stressful thing and they'll end up needing therapy around food when they're older, because meal times, you know, are associated with major stress. So stay chilled, a few deep breaths before a meal, and make it meaningful. So things like, I mean, we all grew up hearing carrots make you see in the dark, that kind of thing. So maybe try and associate the food, you know, protein can give you energy, that kind of thing. Try and associate the food with a positive meaning. That can help. So look, they're my little tips. As I say, no magic wand. I wish there was, but if you can, I think the biggest thing is to be relaxed, honestly, because if you're getting stressed, meal times become a really stressful thing that they're dreading, and they're not in the headspace to try new foods. So that's pretty much it for me. So just the conclusion really left. So while diet is not a cause of hyperactivity alone in children, it is an sometimes easily modifiable factor in supporting brain health, promoting calm, and improving behaviour. So by incorporating omega-3 fats, protein-rich foods, gut-supporting fibre and fermented foods, and polyphenol-rich fruit and vegetables into your child's diet, hopefully you may see a noticeable improvement in mood, energy, and focus. And that is really it from me. This is just my contact page if you wish to contact me, but I'm sure Sonia will send it out to you.
We absolutely will.
Brilliant.
So going back to your last but one slide, I was thinking about other things that it really is just about trying to make tiny changes, isn't it? And
100%.
Getting kids involved in their own way. So even at a supermarket level, choosing foods together, thinking about different things. I've very often found that if children don't like a vegetable when it's cooked, they do like it raw. But who knew that raw cauliflower is absolutely delicious?
My youngest doesn't like cooked carrots, but will eat raw. Fine.
Yes. Yeah. So that's something really to be mindful of. And like I say, getting involved at every level. So with teenagers, it can be about thinking about what's important to them, and then like this educational role around the foods that hit those points, isn't it? So the sporty kids, these are going to be great for your flexibility. These are great for your mind focus. But the girls that are thinking about their appearance all the time, talking about glossy hair and nails, and it's just gentle education, isn't it? And nothing being banned, having lots of great things available all the time. I was probably had a bit of a harder line with my kids, I suppose. Zoya's probably on the call and will tell me. I ruined yogurt for her by mixing fish oils in with them. You can definitely go
I'm with her on
still
that
can't
one.
eat a yogurt. You can definitely go too far,
Yes.
can't you, in trying to encourage your kids and to be really relaxed about it and led by them, I think is very, very important, because you don't want to set up lots of problems in the future. But
100%.
if you can get your kid to choose, I don't know, I mean, it's an extreme example. If you can get your kid to choose a pork pie and a wrapper from the shop instead of a big bag of Skittles, that's a win. Little wins come in all different ways, don't they?
And you see it, like my eldest now is at university in Manchester, which is hundreds of miles away, and he sends me pictures of his dinners, and they're just brilliant.
Yes.
He'll have a Nando's delivery. He's not perfect, and I don't want him to be, but and that's just years of gentle education and gentle kind of serving up good foods. But as I say, I am not perfect, and don't buy these people who pretend that they never give their kids frozen pizza, etc. We all have days where everything runs away with us, and it's absolutely fine. Homemade birthday cake is good for the soul. Fish and chips on the beach is good for the soul. So it's not about this perfection. And I knew somebody years ago who did take a really hard line with their kids, but then when these kids used to go to a birthday party, they would go mad. Because it was such a novelty. So it's a balance, isn't it? It's a fine line.
So for all of those parents that are watching this in the evening after they've managed to wrestle their kids into bed, even though it's now the summer holidays, woohoo, what we're saying is that lots of tips in this webinar that we hope that people have enjoyed, but also on our Nature's Notebook page, which is on the Hello Wellness website, we've got the blog articles that you wrote for us, Deirdre, and I also wrote a blog article with loads of information in. There's lots of resources on there, as well as talking about our wonderful little herbal capsules. And you mentioned earlier Hello Brain, which is just brilliant because it's got lots of herbs in that help help balance the brain and nervous system out, so they can be super helpful for
Mhm.
kids that are hyperactive as well as kids
Yeah.
that are struggling to concentrate. So herbs are always something to think about. The original plant medicine, just you know,
That's
we just
it. Yeah.
dry them and put them in a capsule convenience. So there's lots of resources on there, and after the webinar we will email everyone who registered with a link to rewatch it and links to all of these things that we're talking about. But it is very much
I'll send
it's not just an everyday thing, but it's almost like an every hour thing we're thinking about is food, isn't it? And if we can tip it a little bit into more good than things that we know are not so good for us, makes a big difference.
Exactly that. And I'll send you over my 10 clever food swaps. So
yes,
you can, and don't try them all at once, one at a time.
one at a time. And people can follow you on the socials, obviously, for more tips, and people are also welcome to get in touch with Deirdre and actually talk about working one-to-one, because there's no better way to look at what's unique to your family and your child and what might be helpful. So we would always encourage that if people can possibly manage it.
Thank you. We're also individual, that this blanket nutrition advice isn't for everybody all of the time. So yeah, absolutely.
No, it's a good start, but individualized working with somebody who's got all of the knowledge, it can just have so many light bulb moments. It's always worth it. Brilliant.
Life-changing stuff.
Perfect. Well, let's wrap things up there then. It has been really amazing. I know it's going to be helpful for so many people, and demystify some of the things that we hear talked about so often. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you again soon.